After his ridiculously wealthy biological parents dragged him back home, Arthur spent every waking moment plotting a beautifully poetic death for himself. Whenever misunderstood, he stayed silent. When falsely accused, he gladly stepped up too. Take the fall for everyone. Why? Because as you and I know, his system told him one absolute rule: if he hit the ultimate milestone of being completely turned against and cursed to death by 10,000 people, he would be sent straight back to reality with a multi-trillion-dollar cash prize. Well, heaven absolutely never disappoints a dedicated villain. Finally, thanks to his relentless grinding, our guy was standing on the execution platform, ready to be publicly eliminated. The moment he appeared, the boos and brutal curses from the massive crowd below became totally deafening. Some people even organized a massive synchronized chant: "Arthur is a shameless clown." Arthur is a total clown. Facing those ear-shattering screams, he felt like a VIP leader inspecting his troops. He gave the angry mob a polite nod. Keep booing, folks. The harder you curse, the happier he gets. He could already picture trillions of dollars sprouting wings and flying right into his pockets, just as he was lost in that sweet, wealthy daydream. A freezing female voice echoed in his ear. The public execution is about to begin. Two heavy officers pressed him down to his knees, one on each side. He felt something freezing cold and metallic press against the back of his neck. Probably the barrel of a loaded weapon. He smiled, closed his eyes, and braced for that glorious moment, returning to reality to finally live his absolute best, filthy rich life. But right at that magical second, a booming voice suddenly blasted over the speakers. Wait, the newest technology, the memory extractor 9000, has just been perfected. The government has decided to use Arthur Sterling as our very first test subject. We will extract his memories right here, right now, before proceeding with the execution. The crowd instantly erupted into a total frenzy. In that split second, Arthur panicked. You and I would too. If his memories are exposed, how does he complete his villain arc? 10 grueling years of playing the ultimate bad guy. Is his trillion-dollar prize going to vanish into thin air? No, you cannot do this. He jumped up and yelled, "This is a massive invasion of my privacy." A female officer calmly held a piece of paper right in front of his face. This is the body donation form. You signed yourself, agreeing to unconditionally donate your body to the nation for scientific research. You can double-check the signature. Staring at that cursed paper, Arthur was dumbfounded. He was naturally a very patriotic guy, figuring he would do one last good deed for the country before clocking out. When he signed it, he totally thought it meant donating his body after he was dead. Who knew the fine print meant he was donating it while still breathing? He was completely flustered. His execution was being live-streamed globally across all networks. That meant if his memories were extracted, his entire behind-the-scenes life would be broadcasted to the whole wide world. What does he do now? Committing self-destruction was definitely out of the question, because the system had strictly warned him. Self-elimination equals absolute mission failure. If he did that, he would actually just die for real. System, Arthur screamed internally, calling out in pure absolute desperation. After a long dramatic pause, the system finally chimed in, sounding just as useless. I have no idea what to do either. Hearing the system give up, Arthur sank into total despair. Up in the VIP stands, the spectators looked at Arthur's panicked state and sneered coldly. Wow, didn't expect this total monster to know what shame is. I thought he didn't even have a heart. A guy named Sparrow sneered. Next life be careful, don't do such wicked things, another mocked. Even his own biological older sister, Vivian Sterling, curled her lips in absolute disgust. The live stream chat was practically exploding. Totally deserves it. He did so many horrible things. Now he gets to taste the ultimate exposure. I bet Arthur hides way more dark secrets we don't even know about. You and I both know this stream is wild. Let's see him try to justify faking a romance with that idol, or how he framed precious David. Karma is very real. After the sudden announcement of the memory extraction, the streams. Views skyrocketed from 10 million to a staggering 30 million. Arthur just stood. They're frozen like a statue, until guards strapped him tightly to a chair with heavy-duty belts and slapped a shiny metal helmet on his head. Immediately, a mild electrical current buzzed right through his scalp, making him twitch. Involuntarily, up on the giant jumbotron, an image finally flickered to life. It was his very first day crossing over into this world. He was only 15 at the time, the true young master who had just been brought back from the countryside by the incredibly wealthy Sterling family. The fake young master was David Sterling, the biological son of the family's former maid. To give her own son a life of insane luxury, she had secretly swapped the babies, putting David in the mansion while tossing poor Arthur out into the countryside to fend for himself. Yet, when the truth finally got exposed, not only did the Sterling family completely refuse to punish the maid, they actually thanked her for raising David into such an outstanding young man, even wildly rewarding her with a fat $10 million check. Stick with me, because the system's first mission pushed David straight down those stairs. Now the Sterling mansion was massive. Ever since arriving, Arthur hadn't even bumped into David yet. To complete this crazy mission, he had been awkwardly loitering near the grand staircase for half an hour. Oh, so that was the day Arthur pushed David down the stairs. Vivian muttered coldly from the stands, her eyes filled with deep disgust as she glared at Arthur strapped to the chair. This kid is truly something else, even if David isn't his actual biological brother. Why couldn't he just get along? Mrs. Sterling sighed heavily. He is simply just born totally evil. How did I ever give birth to such a wicked child? Impossible to. No, Mr. Sterling said coldly, but right at that exact moment, the scene on the screen shifted. A voice called out from behind 15-year-old Arthur. So, you are Arthur? Up on the screen, Arthur turned around to see a blonde guy looking him up and down with absolute arrogance. This was definitely the golden boy male lead, David. His gaze was incredibly irritating. Arthur was just trying to figure out exactly how to gently nudge him down those stairs without causing real injury when David suddenly spoke right up. Again, let me tell you a little secret. Even though you are their biological son, you grew up in the dirt. Mom, Dad, and Vivian hate country bumpkins way more than anything. They will never like you. Yesterday, they specifically told me that even if you came back, I would still be their most important son. In this house, you better learn your place and keep your head down. While talking, David just slowly walked behind Arthur, casually leaning right against the grand stair railing. Arthur didn't say a word, quietly processing the massive info dump he just gave him. No wonder the crazy system. All right, let's watch this madness. The system wanted Arthur to fix the timeline, but David's moral compass was totally shattered. Seeing Arthur stay perfectly silent, the fake brother naturally assumed he was terrified. He actually sneered, "Get on your knees and bark like a dog for me." The absolute audacity of this guy. Hearing this garbage, Arthur finally snapped and opened his mouth. If your daddy doesn't show his power, do you really think I'm a sick kitten? Who gave you the guts to tell your father to bark? Arthur's voice naturally spiked in volume. You really don't know what's good for you. Hearing this, David glared back, super annoyed, and then he pulled the most dramatic, totally unprovoked stunt imaginable. The guy literally threw himself backward, tumbling down the stairs with a look of absolute fake terror. After doing a few perfectly aesthetic barrel rolls on the carpet, he stopped. He looked up with crocodile tears in his eyes and whined, "Brother, I just wanted us to get along. Why did you push me down the stairs?" In that moment, our MC was genuinely speechless. Seriously, what on earth was that? Absolute peak acting. The Oscars literally owe this kid a statue. Suddenly, rapid footsteps echoed from behind Arthur. Before he could even turn to look, a hand swung through the air. Smack! A brutal, heavy slap landed squarely on his cheek. As a former martial arts champion in his past life, Arthur could have easily dodged that hit. But David's ridiculous Broadway-level performance had left him so utterly stunned. His brain was literally buffering. He focused his eyes. The person who just assaulted him was his biological sister, Vivian Sterling. You are so vicious. David just wanted to be nice to you, and you callously push him down the stairs. If anything happens to him, I will never forgive you, Vivian yelled fiercely, then instantly rushed down the stairs to check on her precious David's injuries. Now, watching this memory play out, the entire Sterling family in the VIP stands was completely losing it. Mrs. Sterling's jaw practically hit the floor. How could this be? Didn't everyone say Arthur pushed David? Why did David throw himself down just to frame Arthur? Mr. Sterling's eyes widened in pure disbelief. Impossible, absolutely impossible, the most shocked of all was Vivian. In her eyes, David was the absolute purest, most innocent little angel on earth. How could he pull off something this manipulative? Her view of him was so pristine, it was honestly borderline delusional. That was exactly why she believed his lies without a second thought and instantly slapped her actual, real brother. For one brief, fleeting second, a sliver of genuine guilt hit her heart. Why was she so blind? Why didn't she ask for the truth before striking Arthur? But that guilt vanished fast. She convinced herself that compared to Arthur's later crimes, that slap was basically a love tap. Plus, David was always a good kid, right? He probably just had a panic attack because Arthur had just returned home, and he felt threatened. Meanwhile, the broadcast's live chat was absolutely losing its mind. Wait, are my eyes working? Arthur didn't push him. David threw himself right down the stairs to frame him. Oh my God, I was totally blinded by David's innocent little face. I can't believe he's a complete snake. And what is wrong with Arthur's sister? She didn't even ask questions before slapping her actual flesh and blood. Is she mentally okay? Everyone, calm down. Arthur is still the main villain here. We should be happy someone hit him right. Vivian looked at those brutal scrolling comments and instinctively lowered her head in deep shame. On the screen, the memory playback continued. Arthur touched his red, swollen cheek and glared right at Vivian. If your precious little the fake brother acts hurt, is there any chance I could become your new favorite? Vivian sneers. You are just a country bumpkin. Do you even deserve the brother title? I only have one brother, and that is David, she screams, helping him stand up. It is okay, sis. I am sure he did not mean it. Let's forgive him, David says, playing the ultimate victim card. But our guy Arthur, he just stares back coldly. David wants to completely isolate Arthur from the family. A cheap playground trick like that might fool a toddler, but you and I know Arthur is a professional villain who knows the entire plot. Nobody out-crazies him. With that exact thought, he slowly walks down the stairs. You said I pushed you down the stairs. Well, it would be rude of me not to make that accusation a reality. Otherwise, you would be falsely accusing me. Right? The second those words leave his mouth, Arthur launches a brutal Sparta kick straight into David's chest. David suddenly feels like his entire rib cage has just been smashed by a massive sledgehammer. He flies backward, crashing incredibly hard onto the floor. He is completely dumbfounded. He never expected Arthur to just totally ignore the standard drama script. Normally, the framed guy would desperately try to explain things to the sister. Why the heck is he just kicking me? David scrambles to stand up. Brother, what are you? Brother, yeah, right. Arthur dashes down the remaining steps, aims right for his left cheek, and delivers another brutal kick. David flails around trying to stand. I just stop whining. Arthur aims for his right cheek this time. Whack. David writhes in pure agony, his face quickly swelling up like a massive balloon. He looks up at Vivian, begging for help. Sis, my foot. Arthur aims right for his chin and delivers an uppercut kick. His jaw nearly detaches as he goes flying back again. Remember this, you do not have a sister in this house. There is only Dad, and I am your daddy. Arthur sneers down at him. Up top, Vivian finally snaps right out of her shock and sprints down. She had not stopped him for two reasons. 1. She never actually expected Arthur to be so ruthlessly violent, and 2. His combos were so fast, her brain literally could not keep up. You are going way too far, Arthur. What did David ever do to you two? Deserve this, she shrieks. Oh, you are feeling left out because you did not get kicked. Let me be fair and balanced. Then before he even finishes the sentence, Arthur shifts his weight and absolutely Sparta kicks Vivian. She flies backward and crashes straight into David, who had just barely managed to sit up. Their heads bonk together hilariously. David's brain is practically rattling around inside his skull. He is in complete shock. Why does this country bumpkin have the insane strength of a martial arts grandmaster, the Sterling family's giant black dog? Seeing its masters getting bullied, runs out and starts barking aggressively right at Arthur. He does not even blink. He just swings his hand and slaps the dog across its snout. The massive dog tumbles down the remaining stairs and crashes right into Vivian's stomach. No need to thank me. I have always been this incredibly efficient, Arthur says, brushing his hands off. Having done the deed, he smugly flexes his work to the system. The system remains completely silent for a moment before finally stuttering out, You are incredibly professional. Oh my God, what kind of satisfying revenge script is this? Honestly, this is way too good. Is this guy's mental state even okay though? Even the dog caught hands. Wild, he just straight up kicked them down the stairs. Are you seeing this? Arthur is naturally evil. He went way too far. That dog was adorable, and he hid it. No wonder they labeled him an animal abuser. Fast forward, Arthur scanned the angry crowd. Off in the distance, someone was holding a massive banner. It read, Arthur is an animal abuser. Heaven will never forgive him. Probably the local animal rights group. Honestly, when Arthur first saw that ridiculous banner, he was actually thrilled. It meant his villain points were stacking up nicely, but too bad. All his hard work was about to get erased by this stupid memory machine. The memory screen shifted again. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling suddenly appeared at the top of the stairs. What on earth is going on here? Mr. Sterling barked, staring down at the pile of people and the dog groaning on the floor. Arthur, this vicious monster, pushed our whole family down the stairs. Vivian cried out, shoving the heavy dog off her and struggling to stand up. Dad, please don't blame him. He just got here. He's just not used to us yet, David mumbled through his perfectly swollen, pig-like face. Playing the absolute saint to the bitter end, Mr. Sterling looked at David's horribly battered face, his fatherly heart aching. Then he turned to Arthur with a glare cold enough to freeze a volcano. You little bastard, causing absolute chaos the second you walk through the door. I never should have brought you back. Arthur just chuckled internally. How childish. He doesn't even ask what happened before throwing wild accusations. The apple truly doesn't fall far from the tree. You only see David's swollen face, but you completely missed the giant handprint right on Arthur's face. Selective blindness at its absolute finest. If Arthur was a bastard, what did that make this old man? Mr. Sterling pointed a trembling finger at Arthur, then lowered it in pure fury. The whole family, including the staff, is going on a vacation. Arthur, you will stay right here and reflect on your actions. Oh yeah, the plot was finally moving. The gloomy mood in Arthur's heart instantly vanished. Really, he almost cheered out loud, but quickly caught himself and shifted his expression into one of absolute, heart-wrenching agony. Dad, are you completely serious? Before leaving, Mr. Sterling still was not at ease. He shot Arthur a freezing glare. The wine cellar down in the basement. You are strictly forbidden from entering it. It is full of expensive vintage collections. If you ruin even one single bottle, I will end you. Arthur nodded obediently like a good boy, but inside he was throwing an absolute rave. So the expensive booze is in the basement. Thanks for the map, old man. Arthur was notoriously immune to hangovers anyway, Mr. Sterling added, and our master bedroom, don't you dare step foot inside. That mattress alone costs $10 million. It's a global limited edition. I don't want a filthy kid like you anywhere near it. Arthur nodded enthusiastically. Don't worry, he would Absolutely destroy its resale value. You are not allowed in my room either. Vivan glared fiercely at Arthur. In the original novel, Vivan was a massive germaphobe. She absolutely hated anyone entering her sanctuary or touching her stuff, especially her limited edition pink gaming chair. If anyone dared to, she would scrub it with industrial-grade alcohol for hours, except for David, of course. Arthur just smiled and nodded. Oh baby, today was going to be an absolute pentakill. Mrs. Sterling watched the memory screen and sighed heavily. She remembered her conversation with her husband that day. Isn't this a bit too harsh? It is his very first day home. Do we really need to isolate him like this? She had asked. Mr. Sterling had coldly replied he grew up in the dirt with zero manners. He needs to feel the pain to learn the lesson. Even Vivan had eagerly chimed in. Dad is totally right. He pushed David down the stairs on day one. They figured if they didn't discipline him, he'd tear the house down later. Back on screen, once everyone drove off, Arthur casually grabbed a can of Sprite from the fridge. Then he strolled right into a certain room. Watching this, Vivan in the stands nearly had an aneurysm. Was that her room? What was he doing in there? She clenched her fists, staring at the screen in pure terror. Her germophobia was so severe, just watching him invade her space made her hyperventilate. He pushed the door open. A tsunami of pink assaulted his eyeballs. Pink walls, pink duvet, pink gaming chair, pink desk. Exactly like the book described. Despite her resting witch face exterior, Vivan secretly had a hardcore magical girl aesthetic. The live stream chat completely went wild. Wait, was this Vivan's room? It was so aggressively pink. Who knew the grumpy sister was secretly a Barbie girl? In the stands, Vivan wanted the earth to swallow her whole. She kept this secret for a reason. Now the whole world knew. Curse you, Arthur. What was he about to do? On the screen, he dragged her sacred limited edition gaming chair out and flopped heavily onto it. Soon the room echoed with loud surround sound gaming noises. When the match got intense, he accidentally knocked over his Sprite. The sticky soda splashed all over her ultra-rare mechanical keyboard. Vivan ground her teeth so hard they nearly cracked. That was the limited edition keyboard she had fought tooth and nail to buy. Arthur, you absolute demon. He was a menace. But honestly, you and I can see he was actually cracked at this game. That's not the point. He went into someone's room without permission and totally wrecked their stuff. Total trash behavior. After crushing some noobs for 2 rounds, Arthur felt incredibly refreshed. He casually grabbed a dirty rag, wiping the keyboard down. Sprite was clear anyway. She probably wouldn't even notice. He turned off the computer, stretched, and was about to leave when a scratching noise came from behind him. The house was empty. Where was that sound coming from? He followed the noise. Sighing in relief, it was a chubby little hamster in a cage. He remembered the book saying Vivian loved animals and kept a pet hamster. He walked over. The hamster was super friendly. Seeing him approach, it rubbed its little nose against the cage door. Little guy, think you can escape his clutches today? He let out a cartoonish villain laugh, opened the cage, and scooped the furball up. In the stands, Vivian's eyes widened in sheer horror. Little love, that was her absolute favorite pet. Later on, she found it dead, brutally unalived. Covered in red, she never understood how he could be so cruel to a cute creature. Even though she didn't see it happen, David had vividly described the gruesome scene to her, and David never lied to her. My poor little love. Vivan teared up. The audience was equally distressed, especially the animal rights activists holding the banner. Arthur is an animal abuser. Unforgivable. Oh my God, what was he going to do to that poor thing? They couldn't. Look, he once massacred a whole animal shelter. This was going to be brutal. On the screen, Arthur flashed a wicked, devilish grin. He carried the hamster into the mansion's private karaoke room. He turned on the disco lights and the massive speakers. Then, holding the hamster firmly like a microphone, he actually started belting out high notes. The entire live stream chat went dead silent for a solid 5 seconds. Is Arthur mentally stable? Has his family checked his brain into some Weird clinic, he is using a live hamster as a karaoke mic right now. It's feelings after 5 deafening pop songs, that little hamster in his hand looked like it had completely accepted the void, unable to take the auditory torture anymore. It chomped down hard on Arthur's finger. He winced in pain as fresh blood dripped from the nasty bite. Arthur just stood frozen. To Vivian watching, this silence felt like a horrific storm. She dug her nails deep. A guy who kicked real human beings downstairs totally wouldn't hesitate to obliterate a hamster that bit him. She literally could not bear to imagine the fallout. The animal rights activists held their breath. 2 girls were crying, but on the big screen our guy walked right back to Vivian's room and gently placed the little guy in its cage. He casually slapped a bandage on his bleeding finger. Then he finally noticed the hamster's food bowl was totally empty. That family had left in such a crazy hurry. Vivian completely forgot to feed it, so Arthur rummaged through her drawers, found the bag of premium seeds and filled that little bowl up. There, I fed you. Do not bite me again, he muttered quietly. Then Arthur suddenly remembered the giant blackguard dog. Did anyone feed it? He marched right downstairs to check. As soon as it saw him, that black dog started barking wildly, but Arthur was not intimidated in the slightest. He walked straight toward it. Seeing him approach with zero fear, the massive dog immediately tucked its tail and laid down obediently, whimpering softly. He checked its automatic feeder, completely empty. These rich folks really just up and left without caring about their pets, he grumbled, searching the huge pantry until he found a massive bag of premium dog kibble. All right, let us call a draw. From our earlier fight, I am feeding you now, so no more barking. Arthur poured the food while glaring hard at the beast. The dog seemed to understand perfectly and started wagging its tail so incredibly fast its entire body shook. Watching this, Vivian in the stands looked like her brain just completely short-circuited. Arthur is supposed to be a bloodthirsty psychopath. How is this possible? Little love was definitely killed by him. David said so himself. Wait, did David lie to her? Impossible. David is an absolute angel. He just had a tiny panic at the stairs. He would never lie about this. Mrs. Sterling turned to Vivian slowly. Didn't you claim he murdered your hamster? Didn't you say he abused animals? Is there some mistake here? Mr. Sterling scoffed coldly. David saw it with his own eyes. How could it possibly be fake? We raised David. We know his true character. A spark of resentment flared up in Mrs. Sterling's heart. So what if we raised him? Arthur is my real flesh and blood. Look at him. He got bitten and still fed the animal. It turns out Arthur actually used to be a good kid. What made him turn to the dark side? Later on screen, after playing with the dog for a bit, Arthur stood up and headed toward the dark basement stairs. Wait, where is he going? Mrs. Sterling felt a sudden heavy sense of dread. He certainly didn't disappoint her. The very next second, Arthur pushed open the heavy oak doors of the wine cellar. Oh snap, he is in the wine cellar. Everyone knows the Sterling family cellar is genuinely the best in the city. Time to feast our eyes. What is Arthur planning? Is he going to smash it all? Seeing him open that door, Mr. Sterling's heart completely stopped. Those were the rare vintage wines he had collected for decades. The man rarely even let himself take a single sip, even though he occasionally. Mr. Sterling checked the massive cellar. He prayed Arthur had not touched his stash. He prayed silently, but the very next second, his absolute worst nightmare hopes completely shattered. Arthur casually popped a 20-year-old Muay, then grabbed an 82 Leffit, and then a ridiculously rare bottle from a top British distillery. Arthur popped 8 insanely expensive bottles in total. Mr. Sterling literally leaped out of his seat. You ungrateful beast, how did I spawn this demon? He clutched his chest, pointing a shaky finger at the giant screen. Dad, please calm down. It is just a few bottles of wine. Vivian tried soothing him, looking slightly guilty. Just a few bottles. Mr. Sterling slowly turned his head, absolutely glaring at her like she had lost it. Do you know what those are? 82 Leffit, and I bought that one at the Spanish royal auction for $5 million. Arthur, I will end His eyes were totally bloodshot. Vivian shrank back. Honestly, she had actually done something similar once, figuring her dad never actually drank them. She secretly popped a bottle of Manhwa for a taste, only to find it tasted exactly like plain tap water. She totally thought her dad got scammed with fake booze, but never dared to tell him. But wait, you and I need to look closer. What was Arthur doing with the empty bottles? After chugging an absolutely ungodly amount of premium alcohol, he grabbed the empties and waltzed right into Mr. Sterling's fancy master bathroom. He dipped those expensive bottles straight into the toilet bowl, filling them with toilet water, corked them up, and casually put them right back on the display shelf. When Arthur finished, he gave himself a proud little nod. A certified genius, Mr. Sterling's brain literally exploded. You see, just a few days ago, he had gone down to the cellar, hugged those exact bottles, and lovingly kissed them, and now, knowing they were full of literal toilet juice, he could not take it. His eyes rolled back, passing out cold in his VIP seat. Honey, Dad, the Sterling family frantically scrambled to wake him up. Arthur is the absolute god of chaos. I thought him drinking all 8 bottles was the peak, but replacing it with toilet water, that is biological warfare. Man, Arthur is unbelievably petty. They literally just grounded him. Did he really have to go that far, bro? If your own family treated you like total trash, would you just smile and take it? He is fighting back the only way he can. When Arthur scooped that toilet water, Vivian felt like she had been struck by lightning. Wait, so that Manhwa that tasted like plain water was actually toilet water. She remembered taking a massive gulp. Wave of intense nausea hit her hard and she gagged. Arthur is pure evil, no wonder he pushed me into the river later. If David had not risked his life saving me, I would be dead. Even if David was not quite as innocent as he looked, the fact he saved her life was completely undeniable. Too bad David was currently stuck recovering on an isolated little island with zero internet access. He could not even enjoy the live broadcast of Arthur's execution. Watch closely. The memories on screen instantly fast-forwarded. The Sterling family was on a riverside vacation. This time around, they actually brought Arthur along. Seeing this familiar landscape, Vivian's eyes instantly turned freezing cold. This was the exact spot where Arthur ruthlessly pushed her straight into the raging river below. Mrs. Sterling sighed heavily. It was right here that Vivian almost died because of Arthur. Maybe the boy really was born evil. After that terrifying incident, Mr. Sterling completely kicked Arthur out of the house, and she did not even try stopping him. The whole wild ordeal broke their entire family apart. Thank God David risked his life to save. All right, you and I are back. For Mrs. Sterling, adopting him wasn't a mistake. Here comes the climax, the exact moment Arthur pushes Vivian, letting David play hero. On the screen, Arthur stared at the raging river, eyeing Vivian near the edge. He was mentally calculating the absolute best angle to push her. The system demanded he do it, but he refused to let her actually get hurt. Vivian couldn't even swim. A push meant she would get swept away instantly, plus that sharp metal grate downstream. If she hit it, she would blade out before even drowning. Thinking fast, Arthur formed a plan. He would just accidentally bump her into the water, then immediately dive in for the rescue. Absolutely foolproof. The mission merely said push her in. It never said he could not save her. She stood on that wooden dock above the water. Perfect target. He got into position, but suddenly a voice called out from behind him, Arthur. He turned around only to see a stunningly elegant figure staring right back. It was Chloe. The golden sunset completely illuminated her flawless face. She offered a gentle smile, and Arthur instantly remembered her novel counterpart, described as incredibly average with an ordinary background and absolutely zero backers, but fiercely loyal to Arthur. Looking closely, she was gorgeous. Her features, figure, and vibe, 100% his type. Seriously, who was this beauty? Honestly, prettier than the famous movie star Alina. Now, you and I are cutting to the city's most luxurious penthouse. Khlo lounged comfortably on a velvet sofa, casually swirling a glass of Obscenely expensive wine, watching the 500-inch TV. She smiled. Softly, finally, her screen time. Her best friend Lily walked in, looking completely ready for some premium gossip. Oh, look whose turn it is to shine. Before Khlo could speak, Lily rambled. I swear you are insane. You have liked him for years but completely hid your true identity. If you had just told him you were a secret billionaire heiress, that actress Alina would never have dared steal him away. Khlo shook her head. He is different. He does not care about status or money. Besides, she just could not tell him the truth back then. It would have ruined any real chance between them. Back on the screen, Arthur stared at the beauty before him, gulping audibly. Calm down, Arthur. You are literally just a transmigrator. You will eventually return to the real world with a fat payout. Plus, his ultimate destiny here was a horrible death. He could not drag a nice girl down with him. Thinking that, Arthur decided to keep it perfectly brief. He exchanged a few polite words, trying to shoo her away to finish his mandatory villain duties. But watch this. When he finally turned around, the sight made his blood run completely cold. David had just violently shoved Vivan straight into the raging river. 100% intentional. The current was absolutely brutal, and in the blink of an eye, Vivan was swept away. The Sterlings definitely weren't around. Arthur sprinted toward David, roaring in absolute disbelief. Are you out of your mind? That is your sister. Why would you do that? David just scoffed. Me, I didn't push her, didn't you? David smirked wickedly. Even though Dad likes me more, I am not his biological son. Only when Vivan dies by your hands will the absolute entirety of the Sterling fortune belong to me. In that exact moment, David's terrifying true face was fully exposed. Check this out. The Sterlings in the VIP stands practically turned into literal stone statues. How could this be happening? Vivan felt a chill shoot up her. Chills down her spine. David is a demon. I loved him and he tried to kill me. Mrs. Sterling snaps out of her shock, now pure volcanic rage. For years she treated David like her own flesh and blood, even cutting ties with her actual son just for him and his payback. He actually tried to murder her daughter. David, you absolute monster. Her chest heaves. She wants to literally rip him apart with her bare hands, but after that rage, a massive, crushing tsunami of guilt, she genuinely believed Arthur pushed Vivian. She treated Arthur like absolute garbage ever. Since then, she never knew Arthur was totally innocent, suffering in pure silence. She cannot even fathom how he survived those dark times. If it was her, she would have ended it completely. Arthur, Mommy is so sorry. Mrs. Sterling breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably as she stares at Arthur, tied to that execution chair in the distance. This was entirely her fault. She was blind, only listening to David's lies. Mr. Sterling is equally shell-shocked. He had always noticed David's little manipulative games, but totally brushed them off as harmless childhood antics. He never, in his wildest nightmares, actually thought David was capable of attempted murder. Are you seeing this? David pushed her. He is a literal psychopath. Vivian was so nice, and he just threw her into the river. Arthur is so tragic, trapped with a fake brother and a brain-dead family. I would honestly have become a supervillain way sooner. Meanwhile, on the screen, Arthur doesn't have time to argue with this psycho. He immediately dives right into the freezing, turbulent river. He isn't a saint, but he is not going to stand by and watch someone die. Vivian is already swept far away. He fights the incredibly brutal current with everything he has, right before she slams into that rusted metal. Great. Arthur manages to grab her. She is totally unconscious. If that sharp metal sliced her open in this filthy water, game over. He immediately pulls her into his arms, using his own back as a human shield against the great slam. The impact is absolutely brutal. That rusty metal tears a massive gash right across his arm. Bright red blood blooms in the freezing water. I swear I must owe you money. In a past life, Arthur grumbles at the unconscious Vivian in his arms, rolling his eyes, but he still holds her tight to ensure she doesn't get scratched. He finally manages to drag her onto the riverbank. completely ignoring his very own. Profusely bleeding arm, he immediately starts performing CPR on her. If he doesn't act fast, she is a goner. After one highly tense minute, she coughs up a lungful of water and slowly opens her eyes. Back in the stands, Vivian sits frozen like a wooden doll. This doesn't feel real at all. No, this isn't real. It has to be a nightmare. David saved me, not Arthur. Not Arthur, she mumbles to herself, trapped in heavy denial. Let's be real, this specific incident is exactly why she despised Arthur. It was why she blindly defended David for years. Now, her entire reality is literally crumbling. The person she hated with a burning passion for years was actually her true savior, and the guy she worshipped as her hero was the one who tried to murder her. It is a sick, twisted joke. Her mind flashes back to that day. The water was freezing cold. She knows that better than anyone, yet Arthur used his own body to shield her from the metal grate, looking at Arthur on the screen, completely soaked in his own blood, desperately trying to save her. A massive wave of gut-wrenching regret washes over her. Arthur protected her with his own life, and how did she repay him? All right, you and I are seeing it. Vivian basically made his life a nightmare. Even today, right before his execution, she hired top-tier lawyers to make absolutely certain that David walked free while Arthur faced the ultimate death penalty. Absolute madness. What kind of monster does that? Right now, Vivian felt entirely unworthy to even breathe. Mrs. Sterling was absolutely bawling her eyes out too, because of this exact moment. She had completely erased Arthur from her heart. She was a massive failure. She lost her boy, let him rot in total poverty, and then tortured him later. I deserve to die, she cried out, raising a shaking hand to slap herself. She hit herself hard across the face. Meanwhile, Mr. Sterling frowned deeply. Okay, so Arthur actually had a heart and saved my daughter, he muttered. But honestly, he still hated the kid, and there was a bigger problem. Arthur knew all of his darkest secrets, with these memories playing. Didn't that mean his incredibly shady business deals were about to leak everywhere? What do I do? He panicked, but on screen the memory playback kept rolling. Vivian finally opened her eyes. Suddenly, David sprinted over, brutally shoving Arthur away. He dropped to his knees right next to her, faking this look of absolute panic. Sis, you are awake. I thought I lost you, he cried. Meanwhile, Arthur was left discarded in the mud. His lips were freezing purple, his entire body shivering violently. His own blood completely soaked his shirt. Our guy just stared at David in total shock. When did this rat jump in the water? He was actually dripping wet. To steal all the hero credit, this guy literally tossed himself into the shallow water to fake the entire crime scene. Add those fake tears. And Arthur was honestly impressed. Even as a seasoned villain, he had to admit total defeat. If he had acting skills like that, he would be unstoppable today. Now watch this chaos unfold. What happened? Why is Vivian down? Why is David soaking wet? The parents burst out of the woods, panicking as they hovered around. This is where David delivered a masterclass in manipulation. He hesitated on purpose, biting his lip, acting like he was struggling to reveal the heavy truth. It is fine, David. Tell us what happened right now, Mrs. Sterling begged him. David looked like he was carrying the ultimate tragedy. I saw Arthur push Sis. He pushed her into the water, then he tried to drown me too. We totally struggled, so I dragged him down with me to stop his rampage. He accidentally cut himself on some garbage, but I only cared about saving Sis. I could not let her die, so I swam instantly and pulled her out safely. Mom, Dad, please forgive him. I am sure it was just a twisted prank. The live broadcast chat completely exploded like a nuclear bomb. The viewers were raging. Holy lies, David is literal evil in a polo shirt. He flipped reality completely. Where are his fans now? Come out and apologize. Back on screen, Mr. Sterling was absolutely roaring, pointing a furious finger right at Arthur's face. We saved you from the slums, and this is your thanks. Vivian is your real blood sister. David is adopted, but he acts like family. How are you so insanely evil? Mrs. Sterling joined the screaming match, blasting Arthur with harsh insults. Dad, Mom. Please stop yelling at him. He was just joking. He just plays a little. Rough David sobbed, wiping his fake tears away. Joking? Who jokes like that? He was trying to assassinate us. He wants us dead. Vivian, looking incredibly pale, and Arthur just stands there, freezing to death, literally bleeding out. His own parents completely ignore him, giving him nothing but blind hatred. Did you actually see me push her with your own eyes? Arthur asks, his voice shaking from the freezing cold. He knows exactly how they will react, but still. Vivian snaps back. If it wasn't you, then who? Did I throw myself in? She grinds her teeth. Meanwhile, Mrs. Sterling rushes to the car, grabbing two warm blankets. She wraps one around Vivian and the other around David. Arthur is absolutely speechless. Wait, is it even physically possible that the guy who pushed you was David while Arthur actually saved you? Just a thought. David chimes in, even if you pushed us both in, just apologize sincerely and we will forgive you. Why are you trying to frame me? David whimpers, totally doubling down on his fake victim act. Arthur opens his mouth to argue, but then ding, the system chimes. Mission accomplished. Wait, seriously, it was that easy, as long as everyone thought he did it. The mission counted. Arthur's mood instantly skyrockets. He is way too lazy to explain. Cut to the stands right now. Vivian's emotions are a chaotic mess. Was she really that stupid? She never investigated anything. She never even let him explain. Watching Arthur's blood-soaked, shivering figure on that giant screen, an absolute ocean of regret drowns her completely. The entire family was right there, yet not a single person asked why he was bleeding out. Nobody offered him a bandage. No one even handed him a towel. Mrs. Sterling just sits slumped, weeping silently. She absolutely hates herself. Why was she so incredibly gullible? Why did she only listen to David? She does not deserve to be. Mother, Mr. Sterling just crosses his arms, looking super annoyed. Do they have to cry so dramatically? It is not like they actually physically hurt Arthur, and that awful wound was not even their fault. Seriously, why didn't they believe him? Why not let him speak? The Sterling family literally shares exactly half a brain cell amongst the four of them. You and I are probably raging right now, whatever Arthur did later. Our hearts have to break for him. He is literally bleeding out. Nobody is helping him. Not even tossing him a blanket. Are these people really his biological parents? Back on screen, Arthur knows his mission is complete. He just shakes his head. This entire family absolutely belongs in an asylum. Seeing Arthur's completely dismissive reaction, Mr. Sterling's temper violently flares. You push your siblings into a freezing river and show absolutely zero remorse. He raises his hand, aiming a heavy slap right at Arthur's face. He is freezing, completely dizzy from blood loss, so his reflexes are sluggish. By the time Arthur tries to dodge, it is way too late. But right before that brutal slap connects, figure dashes in and perfectly intercepts Mr. Sterling's arm. Arthur weakly looks up. It is Chloe, sir. Hitting your biological son like this. Do you really honestly think that is appropriate? Chloe heavily emphasizes the word biological. The Sterling family's insane baby swap drama was literal headline news. It was not hard for her to know. I am disciplining my own son. Mind your business and move, Mr. Sterling furiously snaps. Chloe just sneers coldly. Did you actually see Arthur push her with your own two eyes? How is he your real son, yet you ignore every word he says, while you completely blindly trust the adopted kid from a botched hospital swap? Or wait, is David actually your illegitimate child from an affair? Do not speak nonsense. Mr. Sterling's face turns absolutely beet red. David has been kind and perfectly sensible since he was a baby. He never lies. Arthur grew up in the dirt, totally uneducated and full of bad habits. Why? Why wouldn't they doubt him? Arthur grew up in absolute dirt, and whose fault is exactly that? Didn't his own parents fail their most basic duty? They finally find their biological son, and instead of making things right, they treat him like literal garbage. Is this their supposed elite parenting style? They didn't even press criminal charges against the Maid who swapped the kids, handing her $10 million and actually thanking her for raising a good son. Honestly, anyone watching would think that crazy maid was his old flame. He told her to shut up, trembling with pure rage, but did they even stop? To think why Arthur was actually bleeding, Khlo didn't back down, pointing a sharp, accusing finger directly at the river. Look downstream, there is a huge metal grate, the only logical explanation is Vivian was swept toward it, and Arthur, desperate to save her life, swam into it and got sliced open by the rusty metal. His so-called parents froze completely. Her logic was terrifyingly flawless. David panicked, stammering that he got swept away. 2, claiming he saved his sister, and Arthur's wound was just clumsy luck. Naturally, Vivian swore David definitely saved her. Mr. Sterling stubbornly dug his heels in, insisting he believed David too. Vivian chimed right in, glaring at Arthur. Khlo just laughed, a sound absolutely dripping with pure mockery. If Arthur was such a terrible swimmer, how on earth did he get swept so far away? And if he was terrible, how did he magically swim all the way back against the rushing current? Was absolutely everyone in the Sterling family completely brain dead? Stick with me here, she kept roasting them, but Arthur interrupted, telling her to forget it, not to waste her breath. He didn't need them to believe him. He truly did not need their trust, because if they did, he would fail his secret mission. Khlo was dangerously smart. If she kept analyzing everything, she would expose the whole hidden truth and he would lose his trillions. Seeing Arthur refusing to explain further, Khlo sighed and gently pulled him toward her camping tent. She never expected our guy to live like total trash in the Sterling house. She handed Arthur a thick, fluffy blanket. He eagerly wrapped it around himself, drying his wet hair, calling his family a bunch of morons. He didn't care about their opinions, but he admitted she really saved his bacon out there. Her trash-talking skills were absolute top tier. Khlo just smiled right at him. She told him he had a really strong mindset. Arthur looked at her, shocked. She actually believed him. He was genuinely puzzled. We both know she didn't see him save Vivian, but anyone with functioning eyes could clearly see he got hurt trying to save someone. Plus, she truly believed in his character. Khlo looked him dead in the eye, completely serious. His character. What did she even know about his character? He didn't recall ever really interacting much with Khlo back at school, so why did she have such a ridiculously high opinion of him? She thought for a second, calling him very kind and optimistic. Arthur was completely stunned, because for years in this world, absolutely nobody ever believed him. His family only threw awful false accusations and brutal insults his way. Even though he had thick skin, it still heavily chipped away at him. Sometimes this was the absolute first time someone chose to just blindly trust him. Arthur's heart actually felt surprisingly warm. Khlo then magically pulled out a fully stocked first aid kit from literally nowhere, telling him to come closer to patch up that arm. He stayed quiet for a second, then slowly extended his bleeding arm. Her movements were incredibly gentle. They were sitting dangerously close. Looking right at her perfectly pink lips, he suddenly remembered the crazy gossip on the school forum. Khlo's lips were an absolute masterpiece. Even dying after getting a kiss from her would totally be worth it. Those same lips were less than 4 inches away from him. He involuntarily swallowed hard, but let's be real, he violently shook his head to snap out of. Arthur had to calm down. He desperately needed those trillions to save his grandpa in the real world. Starting a high school romance here? Absolutely not. There was nothing in the system script about dating Chloe. If he fell for her, the entire plot would completely derail. Deciding to nip this right in the bud, Arthur resolved to push her away. Once she finished bandaging him, she magically pulled out a hair dryer, offering to dry his hair. He snatched it back. I will do it myself. Chloe paused, completely taken aback. Why are you helping me? You like me, do you not? Arthur hit her with the most arrogant line he could muster. Chloe was visibly shocked. She definitely did not expect such a direct attack. Do you want me to like you? After a tense silence, she lowered Her head and whispered. Arthur took a breath, lowering his voice into a haughty drawl. No, the Sterling family is top-tier elite, even as the least favorite child. He fully intended to marry someone of equal elite status, a wealthy heiress. It was a flimsy gold digger excuse, but it sounded totally believable. It really should definitely make Chloe despise him. A quick flash of disappointment crossed her eyes, but almost immediately she smiled so warmly. Well, that is good then. We are just classmates, nothing more. Arthur was completely dumbfounded. He thought a sharp-tongued girl like Chloe would absolutely blow up at him. He never expected her to smile like a gentle spring breeze. Good, that is good, Arthur stammered, suddenly feeling so incredibly awkward. Come on, Arthur, you absolute idiot. A gorgeous girl just defended him against his family, and he pulls the gold digger card. You and I know he messed up. The viewers were raging. Boys, unsheath your keyboards. We ride at dawn. Even though she acted cool, fans knew she was totally in love. She roasts absolutely everyone else but stays so gentle with Arthur. Meanwhile, back in the luxury penthouse, Lily crossed her arms, completely fuming. See, I told you playing the humble poor girl would not work at all. He actually cares about status. If you just told him you were the heir to a massive billion-dollar empire, he would have locked you down instantly. Chloe frowned slightly. Do not talk about him like that. I know him. He is not that kind of person. Lily just rolled her eyes. Her best friend was a genius in everything except love, completely blind when it came to Arthur. Back in his memories, Arthur was just as confused. When he read the novel originally, he never understood why Chloe liked him. David was supposed to be the incredibly magnetic male lead. While drying his hair, Arthur looked at her curiously. By helping him today, did you not just make an enemy out of David? Chloe did not look up. So what? It is not like I like him anyway. Arthur was completely shocked. You dislike David? He is the school idol. Girls are literally forming cults around him. Just because everyone else has terrible taste does not mean I do. I despise manipulative, two-faced hypocrites like him, Chloe stated coldly. Just imagining herself with David gave her absolute goosebumps. It was horrifying, but more importantly, she hated David for one very specific reason. He always bullies you. Arthur nodded approvingly. Nice. He finally met one sane person in this entire cursed novel. Seeing his hair was mostly dry, Chloe handed him a set of clean, comfortable clothes. Put these on. For now, she pulled a divider curtain, splitting the tent right in half. Change on that side. Arthur looked at the clothes, then at her, genuinely impressed. Did she pack a whole shopping mall for a simple day trip? Outside the tent, David was absolutely fuming after Khlo stepped up to defend Arthur, his fragile ego taking massive damage right now. Khlo was the undisputed campus goddess. If she wasn't so terrifyingly sharp with her words, her fan club would fill an entire stadium. David secretly harbored a massive crush on her. After all, he was the Sterling family heir, destined to marry some elite princess, but Khlo's total lack of interest, it drove him completely insane. He was so used to girls literally throwing themselves at his feet. Khlo, she treated him like irrelevant background noise. Normally he brushed that stuff off, but today, she publicly humiliated him just to protect Arthur. David just could not handle it. Did she actually like Arthur? In David's twisted mind, Khlo wasn't rejecting him. He just had not really tried to charm her yet. If he actually tried, she would become his devoted follower in absolute seconds. Whatever David wanted, David got. He thought Arthur stood absolutely no chance. David desperately wanted to make Arthur furious, so he confidently marched right toward Khlo's tent. He vowed to make Khlo fall for him. Walking in, David saw only Khlo. He assumed Arthur was gone. Khlo glared at him, radiating absolute freezing hostility. Why are you inside my tent? Seeing her ice-cold glare, David instantly deployed his ultimate weapon, the classic puppy dog eyes. Normally, this little act instantly made his family and classmates melt, rushing to comfort him. Why do you keep Blinking, do you have some kind of eye infection? If you are sick, go find a hospital. This is a tent, not a medical clinic. Kh. Snapped back, completely annoyed. David completely froze. In his entire spoiled life, nobody had ever talked to him like that, especially a girl, but his ego recovered fast. She just did not know the real him yet. Once they talked, she would melt. I just wanted to check on Arthur. I was so worried. David lied, oozing fake concern. You knew he was hurt, but you brought absolutely zero bandages. You just waltzed in here totally empty-handed. To play the holy saint, if you are going to fake it, at least put some budget into your acting props. Kh. Ruthlessly dismantled his entire pathetic charade. David completely choked. His face shifted from pale to red to sickeningly green. You claim you came for Arthur, but brought absolutely nothing. Get out of my sight. You absolute piece of trash. Kh. commanded him without a single drop of mercy. Now get this, standing behind the curtain, Arthur practically had to cover his mouth to hide his laughter. He knew Kh. was sharp, but this was a total execution. She was literally his personal anger translator. David was so destroyed by her words. His brain basically blue-screened for 30 solid seconds. Finally, he decided a strategic retreat was the only option. Fine, if I am not welcome here, I'll leave. He muttered, forcing fake tears, but Kh. was entirely immune to his cheap waterworks. Others might be blind, but I see your act. Leave, you walking biohazard. What? What did you just call me? David's eyes went wide with pure, absolute horror. Nobody ever insulted him like that. Kh. stared right at him, enunciating every single syllable. I called you a piece of trash. Did you hear me? Good, now get out. Right at that exact second, Arthur finished changing and stepped out from behind the curtain. Seeing Arthur wearing clothes that Kh. provided, the intense flames of jealousy instantly incinerated whatever logic David had left. Why does Arthur get to wear her clothes? But when Kh. saw Arthur, her entire attitude flipped like a light switch. She stood up immediately, her voice turning incredibly soft. Are you still feeling cold? Need another jacket? No, Arthur is fine. It is perfectly warm. He smiles. David feels like someone just stabbed his heart with a literal rusty spoon. She totally switches up so fast. She treats David like toxic waste and Arthur like a fragile prince. David completely loses his mind. Why treat him like garbage and Arthur so well? What does Arthur have that he lacks? David screams. Kh. answers. Arthur is kind, brilliant, positive, and brave. Honestly, the absolute best guy she has ever met. Her eyes. David is not worth a single strand of Arthur's hair. Ice cold. Watching her perfectly calm face, Arthur feels his own heart skip beat. He has to admit, the guy is getting serious butterflies right now. David glares at Kh. with pure venom, spins right around and angrily storms out. This guy secretly swears a dark oath. He will absolutely make Kh. obsessed with him and then make her beg on her knees. But honestly, Kh. is a total queen here. She drops pure truth bombs. You and I know the sharp-tongued goddess is real. Do not defend David, crying about people being mean. Oh boy, the David simps are somehow still surviving. They desperately need to touch grass. Watching David finally leave, Kh. sighs in absolute relief. The trash took itself out. Arthur thanks her, deciding he should probably head back. Her intense words actually made him super nervous. He fears if he stays longer, his villainous resolve will totally break. Kh. offers to drive him. She has a car. Arthur refuses. Just a scratch. He can walk. Kh. stares in pure shock at the massive stitched gash on his arm. A scratch, really? They are stuck in the middle of nowhere. Walking takes 4 hours. They argue back and forth, but Kh. cannot convince him. Right before Arthur leaves, she forcefully shoves a heavy winter coat into his hands. Meanwhile, Lily watches the screen, shaking her head. Kh. is totally a hopeless romantic. He refused the ride, so what exactly did she do next? Stick with me, this is great. Remembering that day, she smirks. The second Arthur walks out of camp, she immediately calls up her elite head of security. Uncle Jiao, send a helicopter security team right now. Do not alert. A single soul, coordinates sent. Soon, a completely blacked-out helicopter buzzes low over Arthur during his long walk. He is slightly surprised, but just brushes it off. But hidden in the deep shadows, an entire squad of heavily muscled, highly trained tactical operatives fast ropes right down, awaiting your direct orders, miss. Comms crackle instantly. A boy needs a safe escort back to the city limits. Here is his picture. He is right up ahead. Protect him from the shadows. Do not let him notice a thing. Report any issues immediately. Understood. Copy that. The elite Shadow Squad fans out. After walking for 2 hours, Arthur is absolutely starving. The Sterling family packed up every scrap of food and ditched him. He figures he will just have to starve until hitting the city limits, but as he mentally prepares for a grueling hike, a glowing, fully stocked vending machine miraculously appears on the dirt road, and get this, it is packed exclusively with all his absolute favorite snacks. Arthur just marvels at the weird logic of this fictional universe. Web novel worlds are totally wild. Vending machines sitting right out in the middle of a literal forest. Talk about convenient, but then Arthur pauses. Is this way too coincidental? Did someone actually set this up? Who would even go through that kind of ridiculous effort for him? And who has the insane power to airdrop a vending machine into a forest? He just shrugs, scanning his phone to buy a. Arthur happily munched his snacks. Meanwhile, you and I can see Chloe on her velvet sofa watching the memory screen with a smug grin. The scene shifted. Arthur stood surrounded by students in uniform. Right nearby sat metal cages full of tiny animals, an animal rescue center. And here it comes, the infamous animal abuse scandal. Dead animals everywhere, blood staining the floor. The audience couldn't figure out how Arthur could be so sick. He seemed like a good guy. How did he turn into a monster so fast? Nobody cared about his sad past. Animal abuse is an instant, unforgivable crime. Up in the stands, Vivian wore a very complex expression. Seeing the previous memories, she had finally accepted Arthur as her real brother, but learning he was a serial animal abuser and the murderer of her beloved hamster, Little Love, was an undeniable fact. Could she ever forgive him? Back on the screen, Arthur slouched right behind the homeroom teacher, Miss Lewis. This was a school charity event meant to foster love and compassion in the students. Miss Lewis, watching this exact live stream, had totally trembling hands. She had a terrible feeling her entire teaching career was about to be obliterated. At the time, Arthur was just spacing out, trying to figure out his grand villain arc, completely ignoring the innocent animals. Brother, come here, let me show you something. David waved from a distance, flashing a totally harmless, innocent smile. Arthur instantly went on high alert. Whenever David smiled like that, he was definitely plotting some wild diabolical scheme. But get this, since Arthur desperately needed more villain points, he figured he would see what David was cooking up to use it to his advantage. Arthur followed David. They soon reached a secluded corner with 0 cameras. The gruesome scene before him made Arthur's jaw drop. What the heck? Animal bodies were literally everywhere. It looked like a dark horror movie set, a total massacre. Don't tell me you did this, Arthur gasped, feeling a serious chill run down his spine. Yep, I did it, David admitted proudly, puffing his chest out. You absolute psychopath, Arthur glared at him. Don't tell me you did this just to frame me. Exactly, to frame you. I hate seeing you live a decent life, so I'm going to ruin it. Makes perfect sense, right? If you hate me, come at me. Why the heck would you torture these innocent animals? You killed Vivian's hamster too. Is your hatred for me really worth this? They're just stupid animals. David glanced at the brutal carnage with totally dead, soulless eyes. They should be honored. I used them for my master plan. You know how I did it. I fed them first so they'd trust me. Then I poisoned their food. Then I finished the job. He spoke in a chillingly casual tone, a twisted, sick smile playing on his lips. In that exact moment, Arthur had 0 words to describe him. David wasn't just a hypocrite. He was a literal demon wearing human skin. People are coming. Time for the show. David looked into the distance and smirked at Arthur. I want everyone to despise you. I want to see you try to defend yourself when nobody will listen. Let's see if your precious Chloe still believes in you. After this, up in the VIP stands, Vivian sat completely paralyzed. Little love wasn't killed by Arthur, it was David. She vividly remembered screaming right at Arthur, calling him a born monster, while literally comforting the actual killer. She had tortured her real brother for years based on a massive lie. Smack, smack, Vivian slapped herself across the face twice as hard as she possibly could. Why was I so incredibly stupid? Why did I blindly trust David? A seed of pure, unadulterated hatred for David sprouted deep within her heart. You and I are watching pure rage unfold. David framed Arthur and murdered those pets. Payback is coming. On the memory stream, David suddenly drops to his knees, fake wailing. He screams out, Arthur, how could you? These animals were completely innocent. Why would you torture them to death? Hearing his fake cries, a huge crowd of students and teachers rushes right over. Several timid girls completely shriek at the bloody, gruesome sight. What happened here? Miss Lewis demands, frantically trying to maintain basic order. David, shivering with flawless fake tears, points right at our guy. He killed them all. The class erupts in pure shock. Arthur, is this actually true? How could you do something so sick? Miss Lewis glares at our boy sternly. David keeps playing the victim. I saw him do it. I was terrified. He even threatened me, said if I breathed a single word, I would be next. David completely sells the hysterical sobbing act. He threw the murder weapon in that pond right there. Everyone rushes to the water, and sure enough, lying at the bottom are bloody scissors. Miss Lewis looks deeply disgusted. Arthur, I never thought you could be this insanely cruel. How could you? She points a furious finger right at our guy, but Arthur sneers. Internally, everyone knows Miss Lewis is completely biased toward David. He constantly bribes her with luxury gifts. David calculated this entire setup perfectly. He already knew the corrupt teacher would unconditionally side with him just to quickly close the case and pin everything on Arthur, so he just lowers his head, totally silent, the absolute ultimate opportunity to farm those massive villain points. No security cameras around. If he just stays completely quiet, everyone automatically assumes he is super guilty. Arthur, did you do it? Say something. One very straightforward girl in the crowd yells, finding his absolute silence extremely suspicious, but Arthur just keeps his vow of silence. See, he is not denying a thing, he admits it. David shoots a glance at Khlo, his eyes screaming a message. See, your precious Arthur is an absolute psycho, still like him. Wow, we have been totally deceived for years. Arthur, are you just entirely mute? Say something. The stream viewers are furious. When will David actually face justice? Just as the angry mob gets ready to lynch Arthur, Khlo steps right up. Miss Lewis, convicting someone without real evidence is completely unreasonable, Khlo states sharply. Annoyed by the interruption, the teacher aggressively snaps back at her. We have a witness and physical evidence here. What more do you want? You call this physical evidence? Scissors in a muddy pond that have not even been dusted for fingerprints, and the witness is just David making claims. There is basically nobody else here. You call this irrefutable proof. If I claim you threw the scissors and say I watched you kill those animals, does that automatically make it true? Your method for deciding guilt is an absolute joke. You and I know Khlo is the anger translator. Justice gets delayed, but she is always on time. Is this corrupt teacher an absolute idiot? Convicting someone over fake tears, she definitely took a bribe. Arthur watches Khlo utterly speechless. He thinks, girls, stop carrying. I am actually trying to catch a conviction. Here, Khlo roasting her makes Miss Lewis internally panic. The teacher knows her logic is totally flawed, but David gave her a brand new luxury sports car last week. She has to protect her shiny investment. Meanwhile, the real-life Miss Lewis watching this stream is sweating bullets. She was already transferred to a terrible school a few years ago because of another incident. and just recently, a super severe bullying case. Happened right in her new class. Instead of protecting the victim, she literally told the victim to find the problem within herself. The internet found out, and she is done. Miss Lewis was basically blacklisted by the Education Bureau, just trying to lay low until retirement, praying to every single god she knew that this insane live stream wouldn't expose her dirty past, but unfortunately for her, the top brass of the National Education Bureau were literally tuning into this exact broadcast. School bullying is a complete epidemic. As educators, we need zero tolerance. Investigate this corrupt teacher right now. Even if she took a bribe 10 years ago, we will show zero mercy. The head director barked, and his elite investigators nodded, frantically glaring absolute daggers at Miss Lewis on the massive screen. Suspend her. Immediately drag her in for questioning. Meanwhile, back in the memory, seeing the teacher rendered completely speechless, Serena boldly stepped out from the crowd. I believe David, he literally never lies. K.H. Lowe stared at Serena like she was a talking potato. Oh, you believe him, so it's true. Why do we even need police or actual evidence then? Let's just hire you to solve every crime. I don't care. I trust David. Serena lacked K.H. Lowe's sharp wit, so she just stubbornly repeated her one line like a totally broken NPC. The two girls glared, the heavy tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Our guy Arthur quietly observed Serena. He hadn't gotten a good look earlier, since his eyes were still swollen shut from that nasty stairs incident. In the original novel, Serena was David's ultimate brainless follower. She honestly had zero boundaries regarding him. Now, you and I might hate her character, but Arthur had to admit, even with her flaws, she was absolutely stunning. Serena possessed this incredibly pale, slightly sickly beauty that made everyone want to protect her, but right now, he just found her incredibly annoying. Online, viewers raged. As an art student who followed Serena's profile, I'm unfollowing immediately. She has zero critical thinking. Back in an old interview, Serena claimed bullies targeted her until David saved her and she fell. For him, watching herself on the giant screen, Serena remained totally expressionless. After witnessing those past memories, her perfect image of David was severely cracked, but she still loved him. Honestly, her home life was an absolute nightmare. Divorced parents and abusive alcoholic stepdad and a passive mom. Growing up deeply introverted, she became an easy target for awful bullies. Before meeting David, her entire world was pitch black. One day, cruel girls dragged her into a bathroom, beating her completely mercilessly. Just as she nearly passed out, the door was violently kicked open. A loud voice roared, "Let her go, you total animals." In the complete darkness, someone gently wiped the dirt from her bruised face. She never saw who, but the very next day in the hospital, David brought her missing name tag, claiming he was the hero. Since then, she became his fiercely loyal protector. Even now, lacking any evidence, she instinctively defended him. David, even if the whole world turns against you, I'll stand by your side forever. Suddenly, someone shoved aggressively through the crowd. It was Vivian. She was a senior but rushed right over, hearing David was in major trouble. Vivian, you know Arthur and David the best. Tell us, is David telling the actual truth? K.H. Lowe asked, fully knowing Vivian would definitely side with the psycho. I believe David, Arthur definitely did this, Vivian declared with absolute certainty. That guy Arthur has a history of awful animal abuse. He murdered my hamster. Meanwhile, Vivian in the stands looked like she was trying to swallow a literal cactus. She wanted to dive through the screen and strangle her foolish past self. Why was I so utterly stupid? I framed Arthur. I'm so sorry. If I could, I'd spend my whole life making it up. But let's watch what our guy does next. Strapped to the execution chair, her eyes went completely hollow. Was there any chance left for her? She questioned her very humanity. She didn't deserve to be his sister. In the memory playing, Vivian's testimony was the ultimate nail in the coffin. The crowd gasped in pure horror. If Vivian said it, it had to be true. Arthur looked harmless, but they believed he was a psychopath. Hearing the crowd turn on him, Arthur actually cheered. Internally perfect, his villain persona was reinforced. Vivian was definitely his MVP. Assistant K.H. Lowe, however, was furious. She was about to argue further, but Miss Lewis cut her off. His own sister confirmed the crime. Was that not proof enough? She was reporting this to the school board immediately. K.H. Lowe tried to speak up, but Arthur grabbed her arm and pulled her back, because the animal shelter was heavily funded by the Sterling family. The school dropped all legal charges to avoid terrible PR. Instead, to appease David, Miss Lewis sentenced Arthur to stand right in the middle of the scorching athletic field from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day. Whole week, why did you stop me? K.H. Lowe angrily demanded once the crowd dispersed. Arthur didn't answer. What was he supposed to say? That he was a transmigrator trying to earn $1 trillion just by being hated. K.H. Lowe stepping up for him today meant she would do it again and again. How was he supposed to become the ultimate villain if she kept proving his innocence? He appreciated her trust, but that massive $1 trillion reward was the top priority. He had to completely crush her sense of justice, make her hate him. Why? Because I actually am evil. I really did kill those animals. Arthur lied with a straight face. K.H. Lowe just scoffed, rolling her eyes. I don't believe you are that kind of person. For a second, Arthur was completely stunned. Why won't you believe me? I am literally confessing. They might be blind, but I am not. It is blatantly obvious. David framed you. Why didn't you defend yourself? K.H. Lowe demanded, fiercely stepping closer. You and I can see Arthur was genuinely moved, but this blind faith had to end. K.H. Lowe, he looked directly at her, enunciating every single word coldly. My business has absolutely nothing to do with you. I don't need you standing up for me. Do me a favor and stay out of my life from now on. Without looking back, Arthur turned and walked away. He was sorry, but she was just a novel character. He had a real world to return to. Arthur, you absolute fool. You just rejected the best girl. If he doesn't want her, I will take her. Present-day K.H. Lowe watched from her sofa with dark, stormy eyes. His harsh words had hurt her deeply back then. See, I told you your efforts were completely wasted on him. Lily sighed. You do so much and he just pushes you away. Let him fend for himself. Hearing that, K.H. Lowe's gaze turned absolutely freezing cold, dropping the room temperature by 10 degrees. Even though they were best friends, Lily knew K.H. Lowe was fiercely protective. Whenever she got that intense look, she was genuinely furious. Don't you ever speak about him like that, K.H. Lowe warned, her voice laced with pure ice. Lily swallowed hard. Okay, geez, I am sorry, my bad, but internally she grumbled. You are totally blinded by love. He treats you exactly like a nuisance and you still defend him. You really enjoy being his simp, huh? Now K.H. Lowe remembered what happened next. After Arthur walked away, David slithered right out from behind a nearby building. K.H. Lowe, why bother? You tried to help him and he treated you like absolute dirt, David said, slipping on his concerned friend mask. I know you are kind, but do not let Arthur fool you. If it was just me saying he's bad, maybe. I am biased, but even his own parents and sister hate him. Doesn't that prove he is rotten? K.H. Lowe stares at David with pure, unfiltered disgust. Your parents and sister absolutely hate Arthur for 2 reasons. 1, they share the IQ of a soggy piece of bread. 2, because you constantly manipulate and brainwash them. Your cheap little sociopath tricks might work on them, but they definitely don't work on me. She steps closer, her aura absolutely terrifying. How Arthur treats me is between us. Whether I choose to defend him is my business entirely. You do not get to come here and spew your garbage at me, understand? And when she speaks, her eyes hold the chilling authority of an absolute apex predator. For a second, David feels like he's standing before a ruthless dictator. He is just so terrified he forgets to breathe. He stutters instinctively. You understood. A profound sense of defeat washes over David. He slinks away like a beaten dog. Now, Arthur had walked away, but not far. He heard their entire exchange perfectly. His nose stings a bit. K.H. Lowe really is way too good for this world. Seriously, this girl is iconic. Her verbal smackdowns are Legendary, any David fans crying about her being mean right now. Man, those David simps are wild. Anyway, take your meds. Seeing David scurry off, KH finally lets out a heavy breath. Good riddance. Arthur thanks her again and decides to leave, his heart feeling completely heavy. Later that night, KH is in a foul mood. Since Arthur hates direct interference, she decides to protect him in her own special way. She makes a quick phone call. Uncle Jiao, I need a favor. There's a homeroom teacher at City High, Miss Lewis. I really do not think she is a good fit for this city anymore. Transfer her far away. The more desolate, the better. Also, prepare a few things for me. The very next day, Miss Lewis is in a fantastic mood as she watches Arthur baking under the hot sun on the athletic field. KH walks right past and flashes her a polite, albeit chilling smile. Miss Lewis frowns. She absolutely hates KH because the girl never pays bribes and constantly dares to challenge her authority. She decides she is going to make KH life miserable today. I will force her to memorize the absolute hardest formulas. If she fails, I'll make her stand in the sun right next to Arthur, feeling smug. Miss Lewis proudly marches right into the principal's office. The principal is already waiting for her. Ah, Miss Lewis, come in. I have something very important to discuss with you, the principal says. Miss Lewis is absolutely thrilled. He is definitely going to announce my Teacher of the Year award. Those bribes finally paid off. You are a rare talent in the education sector, the principal smooth talks her. Miss Lewis beams. Here comes the praise. Oh, I am so totally flattered. Therefore, the board has decided to instantly transfer you to City Z to lead the educational vanguard there. And Lewis's smile completely shatters into a million pieces. Principal, you are joking, right? City Z is practically a frozen wasteland out in the middle of nowhere. Terrible climate, absolutely zero infrastructure, and nobody ever wants to go there. I am not joking. This is a direct order from the very top. With your incredibly rare talent, keeping you here is a total waste. The frontier needs you, but what about the salary? She praised this as some high-paying hardship post. Well, you see, the local economy is not great, but with your seniority, you will probably make an extra $200 a month compared to the rookies there. Miss Lewis is completely paralyzed. $200, her current salary is thousands. She grabs onto her very last. A tiny shred of hope remained. When could she return? Lewis, as an educator, your main goal is shaping young minds, not geographic comfort, so why are you so obsessed with coming back? But she had just applied for Teacher of the Year. She cried out. That was a local award. Heading to City Z meant her name was scrubbed from the ballot entirely. But principal, they had a deal. She paid him. He had zero clue what she was talking about. The principal shut her down instantly, taking critical hit after critical hit. Miss Lewis basically collapsed. But she was not completely stupid. She realized she had crossed someone extremely powerful. The only person in her class with that kind of insane pull was Arthur, but his own family hated him. Could it be KH that weird smile she gave earlier? But KH was just a normal working-class kid, right? Desperate, she begged. Did she offend someone? She pleaded for his help, terrified of leaving. The principal took a slow sip of his tea. That was a question for her to answer. He claimed he knew nothing. This order came from way above his pay grade. Be careful out there, Miss Lewis. Remember those professional ethics. Meanwhile, the real-life Miss Lewis, watching the live stream, swallowed a huge, bitter pill. She really did end up going to City Z and staying there for 10 whole years. Instead of repenting, the brutal conditions made her more bitter. Let us watch what happens on screen. Arthur was kicking pebbles on the scorching field. Suddenly, the class president sprinted right over Arthur. New announcement. He did not have to stand out there anymore. Really, but it was a 7-day punishment. It was day 1. Arthur was confused. Miss Lewis got transferred to City Z that very morning. The math teacher was their new homeroom teacher, and she wanted him back inside the class immediately. Punishment completely canceled. Arthur was totally baffled. We know the original book skipped this. Why did the corrupt teacher get banished? To the shadow realm, pure karma. That is what happens when you are a corrupt, biased teacher. People bet she took massive bribes and demanded an investigation. Guys, look at the trending news online. A massive bullying scandal had just broken at a high school. City Z, the homeroom teacher, ignored a girl getting brutally beaten and stripped, and then told her to reflect on her own behavior. That teacher was named Miss Lewis. It was the exact same woman. Netizens cross-referenced the photos. Get the Education Bureau on the line right now. The internet fully mobilized. Phones rang off the hook at the Education Bureau. Miss Lewis and her dark history were completely exposed, back in the memory. As soon as the class president left, David slithered right up to Arthur like a snake. What did he want now? Arthur sighed in pure annoyance. How was the son baking treating him? Uncomfortable. Just think, he had 6 more days of this exact punishment. Sounds like pure torture, right? David sneered mockingly at him. He clearly had not heard the news yet. Arthur could not help but laugh out loud. Sorry to burst his bubble, but that little scheme had completely failed. The class president just told him the punishment was canceled. What canceled? David looked like he had swallowed a lemon. He had specifically bribed Miss Lewis to ensure Arthur suffered. We are talking buying her a sports car. Yeah, that exact Miss Lewis he loved so much. She got banished to City Z this very morning. That car he bought her must have cost an absolute fortune. What a waste of good money. Sucks to be him. Arthur patted his shoulder sympathetically and casually strolled back to class. David stood frozen, his mind completely reeling. The Sterling family was rich, sure, but his allowance was not infinite. He had starved himself. David skipped luxury shopping for 2 whole months for that bribe, and it was completely wasted. He stormed right into the classroom, looking absolutely lifeless. He sat down at his desk. Suddenly, a totally blood-curdling scream ripped out of his throat. He shrieked like a literal slaughtered pig. The entire class jumped right out of their skins. David, what is wrong? The math teacher asked in panic. Inside my desk. David was hyperventilating, his face ghostly pale. Arthur walked over to look and instantly gasped. Holy crap. David's desk was absolutely packed to the absolute brim with hyperrealistic, gory models of dead animals from the local shelter. They looked exactly like the poor things he had tortured. A brave student pulled one out. Relax, they are just silicone props. But knowing they were completely fake didn't calm David down. They looked so real. He thought the animal ghosts had actually come back for revenge. Arthur, you did this, didn't you? David shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Arthur. Arthur just rolled his eyes. Bro, are you okay? I have been standing in the sun since 7 a.m. When would I have the time to craft a Hollywood-level special effects nightmare in your desk? Arthur smiled. Internally, let's watch this unfold. Someone in this class clearly had a massive grudge against David, but who? He quickly scanned the room. Everyone looked genuinely shocked. Only K.H. Lowe sat there, her expression totally deadpan. Was she the one secretly helping him? Arthur quickly dismissed the thought. A normal girl could not source top-tier gore props overnight. David couldn't figure it out either. For weeks afterward, he had terrifying nightmares of undead hamsters and zombie puppies demanding his dirty soul. K.H. Lowe, watching the memory screen, smiled coldly. You bully Arthur, I make you pay. Simple as that. Lily shook her head in total defeat. You do all this brilliant mastermind revenge stuff, and you never even tell him. What is the point if he does not know? Meanwhile, the animal rights activists in the real world silently lowered their protest banners. For years, they had ruthlessly harassed and boycotted Arthur, thinking he was the monster. The cruel irony was David had actively cultivated a totally innocent persona and even starred in literal animal rescue commercials. They felt an absolutely crushing weight of guilt. The organization head rapidly typed out a long message. A minute later, an official and deeply apologetic public letter was posted to social media. It instantly hit the #1 trending spot. I want to apologize to Arthur too. We misunderstood him so badly. But hold up, do not forget he was Still a massive high school bully. Remember the viral video of those kids he tortured? Yeah, let us wait and see before we declare him a saint. Elena, the famous actress, sneered at her screen. She knew Arthur was an uneducated street thug. She only liked smart, successful men, which was exactly why she adored David. David was the sole reason she was a star today, and Arthur murdered her beloved grandfather. She would never forgive him. The memory then transitioned to the school bathrooms. Watch closely, here it comes. The bullying scene, several students testified Arthur was a tyrant, it cannot be fake. Trent, David's top lackey, watched the live stream and started sweating profusely. If the actual truth of this scene ever came out, the internet would devour him alive. He frantically texted his group chat. Guys, they are showing the bathroom scene. What do we do? Just pray it does not show everything. We didn't totally lie. Years ago, David had secretly paid Trent and his friends handsomely to record a fake sob story video, claiming, "All right, let's look at this memory." People thought Arthur was a sadistic bully. But the truth, David and a dozen meatheads cornered him in the bathroom. And the water was completely shut off, making the room smell absolutely rancid. Pure biological warfare. Arthur, you're way out of line. As your family, I must discipline you, David announced, acting like a saint. He was furious. Arthur dodged his previous punishment and desperately wanted some payback. Arthur just sighed. This absolute clown really wanted round two. Drink a mouthful from that toilet and I'll forgive everything, David ordered with intense arrogance. Arthur just leaned against the tiles, casually checking his nails. Hey, the young master is talking here. Are you completely deaf? Refuse, and we will actually break your legs, Trent barked, aggressively cracking his knuckles. Meanwhile, Serena watched the stream in shock. She always assumed Arthur was the villain, but watching this broadcast, Arthur was totally trapped, while David looked like a boss. Serena absolutely despised bullies. Her blind faith in Golden Boy David took a massive hit. You and I both see the truth now. 12 guys ganging up on Arthur. Those kids in the original video clearly lied for clout. The chat went wild, dropping IP addresses instantly. Back inside, David just smirked. He knew Arthur was tough, bringing a literal army so his brother could never fight back. Refuse the forbidden soup, and you'll kneel down, beg for mercy, and tell our parents you are leaving the Sterling family forever. Leave the family? Arthur practically laughed. He needed to stay to finish his villain quests. Suddenly, he lunged forward, unleashing a lightning-fast sweep kick that sent 3 guys flying straight into the door. Oh crap, he's trying to escape, Trent panicked. But Arthur didn't run. He calmly reached over, locked that heavy door from the inside, and slowly turned back with an absolutely maniacal grin. Seeing that, David immediately stepped backward in fear, but remembering his massive squad, he screamed, "There's 12 of us, rush him now," the mob charged. Arthur cracked his neck. Time to show them exactly why I was a national martial arts champion. He hadn't missed a single day of brutal training since he transmigrated. He shifted into a perfect fighting stance and unleashed absolute chaos. Fists and feet became a total blur. 10 seconds later, half those thugs were groaning on the tiles. David was completely horrified. He assumed his brother was just some weak farm boy. He had no clue Arthur was a living weapon. The remaining guys backed away, terrified. Nobody wanted to be the next human punching bag. Get him, attack him right now. David shrieked, but no one dared to move. Fine, if nobody fights, I'm out. David stammered, desperately trying to save face while inching toward the exit. Oh. You think you can start a boss fight and just log out? Arthur laughed wickedly. He grabbed the most cursed weapon in the room, the heavy-duty toilet brush. He plunged it deep into the clogged, festering depths of the bowl, swirling it to collect maximum toxic payload. Then, flashing a truly demonic smile, he swung that brush like an epic broadsword. Splat. Thick, unholy yellow mist sprayed across the entire terrified group. The bathroom instantly smelled like the 7th circle of hell itself. Pure screams echoed off the dirty Tiles, Trent was right in the splash zone, taking a direct hit to his head. Physical damage, absolutely zero, but the emotional and biological damage, completely off the charts. A critical hit, he collapsed screaming in sheer agony, his uniform, trashed, behold. The Excalibur of the restroom, Arthur roared triumphantly. He aimed for David next. Whack, the brush slapped right across David's pristine blonde hair, a sticky, highly questionable brown sludge slid right down his forehead. David froze. He was a neat freak who showered twice a day. Realizing what was actually on his face, he let out a glass-shattering screech. He just wanted to die on the spot. Arthur surveyed the entire battlefield with immense satisfaction, dropped the biological weapon, unlocked the heavy door, and strolled right out, leaving 12 crying boys and vomiting in his wake. Honestly, we are witnessing absolute peak cinema right here. Arthur is an absolute savage. You gotta love him. He literally weaponized the toilet. Biological warfare. If anyone had those combat skills back in high school, they would have ruled the campus. Later on, those 12 boys stood lined up in the classroom, absolutely reeking of absolute death, sobbing uncontrollably. The rest of the class pinched their noses, trying hard not to laugh. They begged the substitute, "You have to expel him. Arthur forced us to eat." "Well, you know," David sobbed to the new math teacher. The math teacher just pinched her nose. "You are telling me Arthur, all by himself, cornered 12 of you and forced you to do that?" It honestly sounded mathematically impossible. After a quick investigation, the teacher figured out the real truth. Even though Arthur claimed self-defense, his use of chemical warfare was deemed way too excessive. She ordered the gang to write apology letters, and his punishment was just to deep clean the bathroom. Fair enough, right? But David was furious. He is the bully. Why do we have to write letters? Because you brought 12 guys to jump one kid. You started it, the teacher snapped. She refused David's bribes and definitely was not putting up with his nonsense when Vivian burst right into the classroom to check on her. Precious David, he ran toward her, arms wide open. "Sis, you are here." Vivian gasped hard. David smelled like a literal septic tank. As he reached out for her, she shrieked, "Stay away, do not touch me, stand 5 feet back." Seeing his beloved sister treat him like a literal plague, David's little heart completely shattered. Arthur leaned right back in his chair and laughed. "What is wrong, Vivian? Not hungry?" "There is plenty more where that came from, in the bathroom." He made a fake lunging motion right toward her. Vivian screamed in pure terror and sprinted out of the room faster than an Olympic sprinter. His sister, Emma, just ran for her life. But get this, one of the guys who faked the bullying video just posted a massive confession on Weibo. The post shot straight to the top trending list. "I lied, Arthur never actually bullied us. David paid us to frame him. I needed money for my mom's surgery, but my conscience cannot take it anymore. I am so sorry, Arthur." The internet unleashed its absolute full fury on Trent and the others. Their personal info got leaked, and they were relentlessly cyberbullied online. Trent violently threw his phone against the wall. In pure despair, sweet karma had finally arrived. On his isolated island, David was playing offline games, totally unaware that his pristine reputation was currently burning to ashes on national television. Meanwhile, back in the memory, David went home, showered for 3 straight hours, and burned all his clothes. Then he put on his absolute best crying performance for Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. "He forced us to eat that. I just wanted to be a good brother," David wailed out loud. "Outrageous." Mrs. Sterling fiercely slammed the table. "Arthur, from now on, your allowance is cut to 0. You will pay for your own food. Let us watch this unfold." Mrs. Sterling wept bitterly. She starved her biological son over a lie. "What a monster. Dad, cut your allowance." "What now, country boy?" David sneered at Arthur when they were finally entirely alone. Then the arrogant jerk got an idea, rushing upstairs to grab massive pile of deeply stained camping laundry. He told Arthur to wear his trash. He wanted to humiliate him completely, but Arthur just looked at that messy pile and saw dollar signs. David was the school idol. Crazy fangirls would totally pay Premium prices. Thanks, bro, you are the best. Arthur grabbed the laundry and ran. Upstairs, David was completely confused. Had the country boy lost his absolute mind? The next morning, David spent an entire hour styling his hair, getting fully ready to reclaim his cool image. Walking onto the campus, he suddenly heard the loud banging of a huge gong. Step right up, everyone. Want to experience the highly authentic scent of our school idol, David Sterling. Arthur was loudly auctioning off his personal dirty clothes, 100% authentic, zero scams. He stood on it. Desk holding a megaphone. David felt his soul evaporate. He rushed the massive crowd in panic. Is this actually his? Someone asked. Arthur had photographic proof. He whipped out a high-resolution picture showing David wearing that exact shirt while camping. He looked like a massive dork. David felt his face turn the color of a tomato. He wanted to vanish. Starting bid is $1,000. Arthur yelled out, 500, 2,000, 5,000. The crowd went absolutely wild. These students had way too much cash. Stop buying, David shrieked, unable to handle the intense humiliation. The crowd went silent. Oh, you are ruining my business. Fine. I will just live stream this auction online. Anonymous shipping guaranteed. He then pulled out his phone. Do not post it online. David panicked hard. If this went viral, his social life was dead. I will buy everything for 50 grand. Arthur scoffed. 200 grand final offer, or I go live right now. David gritted his teeth so hard they nearly cracked. He had just blown all his savings bribing a teacher. 200 grand would bankrupt him, but he had zero choice left. Fine. He transferred the funds, hugged his dirty laundry, and walked away feeling completely victimized. Now, you and I both know Arthur is an absolute genius, scamming the scammer flawlessly. Before this moment, Arthur had zero money from his horrible family. He had to survive somehow. After school, Arthur used the 200 grand to lease a nice apartment near the school. Then he made an important phone call. Grandpa, it is Arthur. My new parents are so incredibly nice. They let me drink fancy wine, and my sister plays with me. Do not worry, I rented a nice place. I am bringing you to the city tomorrow. Arthur hung up, his eyes blurring with heavy tears. In this fake world, the grandpa who raised him was the only one showing real love. It reminded Arthur of his real-life grandpa, currently lying in the hospital with a rare disease requiring trillions to cure. That is exactly why he took this insane system mission anyway. He had to save him. Back in reality, Vivian just watched the memory screen, crying heavily. Arthur was so incredibly sweet to his dear grandpa, lying about them, treating him well just so the old man would not worry, spending everything to give him a home, and they called him uneducated trash. Suddenly, the scene shifted to literature class. This new teacher was notoriously strict, and she had the teacher assigned the class a massive, incredibly brutal classical poem. Who memorized the Song of Everlasting Sorrow? She asked, her eyes scanning the terrified room. David instantly shot his hand up. He stayed up all night memorizing it just to flex. He stood up, recited it decently well, then sat down to soak up the classroom's admiration. Anyone else? The teacher asked. Total silence. David smirked. He knew Arthur slept early. He wanted to humiliate him. Teacher, since Arthur is a transfer from the countryside, didn't you assign him an easier, shorter poem? Like Spring River in the Flower Moon? The teacher nodded. She gave Arthur an easier task because she assumed he was way behind. If he recites it, can it save the whole class from punishment? David asked, acting like the noble hero while laying a trap. He was dead sure Arthur ignored the easy poem, but Arthur casually stood up. He hated high school drama, but in the real world, you and I know he aced his college exams. Arthur had photographic memory. Which one should I read? He asked with absolute calm. The teacher sighed. Just try Spring River. Arthur did not hesitate. He fired off the long, complex poem with flawless pronunciation, zero stuttering, and perfect rhythm. Everyone stared at him, jaws entirely dropped. The teacher was Stunned, this quiet kid was an absolute genius. David's face twisted in pure rage. He tried to humiliate Arthur, but Arthur completely stole the show. Actually, teacher, I memorized the Song of Everlasting Sorrow, too, he added casually. Oh, really? Let us hear it. Arthur recited the brutally long masterpiece without taking a single breath in the wrong spot. The classroom absolutely exploded in applause. He just saved everyone from punishment. Trent, furious about David getting upstaged, aggressively slammed his desk. Big deal. You memorized one poem. If you can memorize Li Sao and Preface to the Pavilion of Prince Tang, texts we have not even learned, I will. Frog jumped 500 meters down the hallway. Arthur looked at Trent like a free loot. Drop, you sure about that? Let us raise the stakes. You film it, post it to your timeline, pin it forever, no deleting allowed. Deal, Trent sneered right back. There was no way Arthur could memorize those absolute nightmares in 3 minutes. Start the timer, Arthur told the teacher, and then he unleashed his inner rap god, started reciting ancient classical Chinese poetry at the speed of a supersonic rap. Legend syllables flew from his mouth like a literal machine gun. He never stumbled. He never paused. 2 minutes and 15 seconds later, Arthur finished both poems flawlessly. The classroom went dead silent. The teacher dropped her pen. When the bell finally rang, the teacher muttered some final remarks and left. Trent's face was pale with regret. He sneaked a nervous glance around, hoping nobody noticed, preparing to escape out the back door. Hey Trent, where are you going? Planning to run away? Arthur smiled brightly, stepping right in front of him. The entire classroom's attention instantly locked onto them. Some students actually pulled out snacks, getting ready for the showdown. We are all classmates here. Do you really have to humiliate him like this? Tommy stood up beside Trent, trying to play the righteous peacemaker. Trent set the terms of the bet. Why is it suddenly my fault for lacking friendship? Unless you want to take the punishment for him. Arthur shot Tommy a cold glance. Tommy was instantly silenced. He wanted to help Trent, but he definitely was not going to frog jump 500 meters. Trent awkwardly sat down. Arthur reminded him of his bet. Everyone in class heard it. Don't make people look down on you, Arthur told him. Trent's face drained from red to ghost white. He instantly regretted opening his big mouth. He was the guy who added those extra stakes. Now he just wanted to slap himself. And finally, feeling the crushing weight of the entire class staring, Trent stood up. Our MC pulled out his phone and hit record. With actual tears welling in his eyes, Trent slowly lifted his hands to his ears and squatted. He used to take dance classes, so honestly his form was somewhat decent. He painfully frog jumped right out into the crowded hallway. Students from every other class crowded around in total curiosity. Look, someone is frog jumping. Is that Trent? What is this, a circus act? His reputation as the high school dance king was completely and utterly obliterated. After he finished those grueling 500 meters, Arthur happily waved his phone, video completely secured. Remember to post it to your timeline. Pin it, no deleting. Poor Trent wanted to rip his own mouth off. Why was he so talkative earlier? He got the video, saw himself looking like a total absolute clown. He stared for 2 seconds, then reluctantly posted and pinned the clip. Arthur nodded in pure satisfaction and walked away. Trent glared at Arthur's back, grinding his teeth together. Just you wait, I will get revenge. So incredibly satisfying. Evil and stupid people totally deserve to shoot themselves in the foot. Moral of the story: never set traps for others, and absolutely do not provoke someone stronger than you. Arthur strolled across the schoolyard feeling totally refreshed, but suddenly 2 random guys ran after him. Arthur, bro, that was peak. Are you a rapper? Teach me. Guy named Vincent beamed at him. Arthur frowned. Crap, he was way too flashy. Now the class was actually getting a good impression of him. This wouldn't do. To maintain his villain persona, he had to shut this down fast. I don't teach trash, he spat out coldly. Vincent's face instantly twisted like he had eaten pure dirt. You jerk, I am going to kick his ass. Vincent lunged forward, but his buddy quickly pulled him back. just calm down. Impulse is the devil, we are classmates, let's keep it peaceful. Meanwhile, poor Trent was sitting completely dejected in the activity room. David walked in to comfort his buddy. Do not worry, David gently patted his shoulder. I will find a chance to get revenge for he made you frog jump. I will make Arthur crawl out of that classroom, barking like a literal dog. Trent nodded, feeling deeply moved. David is such a good friend. The scene quickly transitioned. The math teacher stood proudly at the podium. Registration for the annual National Math Olympiad is officially open. Anyone who wants to participate, just sign up with me. Now you and I are probably wondering about spoilers for this arc. I don't know the exact drama, but I do know that Arthur got a literal 0 on his final math exam. Later on, this Olympiad is going to be a complete disaster for him. How do you even get a 0? Even randomly guessing gets you some points. Our boy Arthur is probably just academically hopeless and incredibly unlucky. Now, the Sterling family heavily valued academics above absolutely all else. David aggressively studied for the Olympiad to secure his spot as the genius heir. Meanwhile, Arthur casually walked up to the teacher's desk. I would like to register. The teacher hesitated. Arthur, the Olympiad is incredibly difficult. You haven't taken any prep courses at all. Maybe next year, she was politely trying to say. He dragged down the school average. It is fine. I can handle it, Arthur insisted. See, in his past life, he was the youngest person to win the Fields Medal in mathematics. High school math was a complete joke to him. David and let us watch Trent strut over, laughing in his face. You, the Olympiad, no basic calculus farm boy, Trent sneered. David scored 147 on the mock exam. You will embarrass our school. 147, Arthur laughed. He could easily score perfect 150 with his eyes closed. David twitched. Oh really? Let us make a bet. Whoever scores lower in these Olympiad qualifiers drops completely out of the competition, drops to their knees, and barks like a dog while crawling out of the classroom. Deal, Arthur agreed instantly. Meanwhile, the Sterling family elders were also watching this live stream completely hooked. Did Arthur and David actually make a bet like this? We never even knew. Wait, after this very competition, David completely stopped participating in the Olympiad. He claimed he was way too busy with other studies and lacked time. Looking back now, that is incredibly suspicious. As for Arthur, nobody in the family even realized he entered the Olympiad. Whenever his dad mentioned him, it was only to loudly complain about his poor education. Could Arthur actually be a secret math genius? Realizing the truth, the Sterling elders grew absolutely furious at Mr. Sterling. The family's true flesh and blood had finally been found, and this was exactly how his father treated him before. Listening blindly to Mr. Sterling and David, they honestly thought Arthur was an irredeemable thug, but watching his memories, they saw a deeply kind, sensible boy. Mr. Sterling had pushed a perfectly good kid into becoming a total villain. As for David, he was a complete monster hiding behind a pretty face. When he returned from that island, he desperately needed strict discipline. The Sterling family could never tolerate this kind of snake. If Arthur truly is a massive academic genius, his father must be heavily punished. Letting a real prodigy go to waste is a massive loss for the Sterling family, one elder boldly declared. The live stream suddenly opened a poll. Who do you think will win the bet? You and I know chat called Arthur an idiot, but he recited poetry flawlessly. Maybe he actually wins. Arthur scored a literal 0 on the college entrance math exam. David scored 147. How will Arthur ever win this Olympiad? Memorizing a poem is completely different from actually solving advanced math. Arthur is just being completely reckless. The results dropped. Over 90% voted for David. Alina, the extremely famous actress, stared at her screen and almost laughed out loud. She knew perfectly well Arthur was a total academic failure. She was drawn to highly intelligent, successful men, which was exactly the reason why she felt so completely infatuated with David. How could Arthur ever compare to David? Right now, even though she watched the stream this long and felt deeply shocked by David and his dark past. So what? David treated her well without him around. She would never have the superstar career she had today. As for Arthur, he was the murderer who brutally killed her grandfather. She would absolutely never forgive him. The memory shifted to the Olympiad exam. Stick with me, because faced with a dense, insanely complex exam paper, everyone watched in total shock. Arthur did not even use any scratch paper to calculate. He just started writing down the final answers. Directly writing that fast, is he just blindly guessing now? Olympiad math is insanely brutal, and he skips the calculations. Even a math god would not believe he is actually solving them. Before the clock was even up, Arthur had finished the entire packet. Only the final massive 10-point question remained. Arthur frowned hard. This is not right. He had read the math textbooks of this. Our guy actually spots a minor logical flaw in their core foundational theories. Normal, simple math problems, this flaw stayed hidden, but Olympiad questions, they were famously brutal, relying on complex, tricky details that perfectly exposed this exact error. Arthur raises his hand. Teacher, there is an issue with the final question. One of the conditions is just wrong. The proctor slams his hand on the desk. Total nonsense. Top math geniuses designed this paper. Arthur just shrugs it off. He grabs his pen and quickly writes out complex derivation right on the back of the test paper. At that moment, an elderly guy with serious boss energy walks in. It is Professor Vance, head of the National Math Committee. He glances at Arthur's paper, ready to scold him, but his eyes suddenly go wide. He grabs the sheet, hands literally trembling. My God, the variable constraints in the third axiom. It really is flawed. You are a generational prodigy. Fast forward to the results. Arthur scores a perfect 150 plus a special 50-point bonus. David hits 112. In the hallway, surrounded by the entire school, Arthur looks down at him. Bark. Tears of pure humiliation stream down David's face. He drops to his knees, whimpering, and crawls straight toward the exit. Now watch this. The giant screen's memories fast forward to the final days of high school. Up in the VIP stands, the famous actress Alina gasps loudly. Wait, my grandpa, Professor Vance, was actually her grandfather. On the screen, it is the day of the college entrance exam. Arthur is taking his math test when he looks out the window. Down in the distant courtyard, David is pushing Professor Vance's wheelchair straight toward the edge of a steep concrete staircase. Arthur does not hesitate. He throws his pen down, earning that infamous 0, and vaults right out the window. He sprints across the courtyard, grabbing the wheelchair just seconds before it goes over the edge. But David is not done. Seeing Arthur ruin his plan, he pulls a syringe from his pocket. He violently jams it straight into the professor's neck. You absolute psycho, Arthur roars, punching David straight into the bushes. He kneels beside the professor, but the poison is way too fast. His hand falls completely limp before Arthur can even process this. David starts screaming from the dirt. Help, Arthur killed Professor Vance. He went crazy. Security guards rush in and brutally tackle Arthur. Back in the real world, Alina lets out a blood-curdling scream and just collapses. David killed him, she sobs hysterically. All this time, she had devoted her entire career to the guy who murdered her own flesh and blood. Suddenly, the memory extractor 9,000 powers down. The absolute truth is out. The plaza erupts into a deafening roar. Free him. David, the Sterling parents, and Vivan completely break through the police barriers. They fall to their knees right before Arthur's execution chair. Arthur, please forgive us. We were blind. Arthur panics internally. Hey, system. Everyone loves me now. Did I just lose the trillions? A robotic chime echoes in his mind. Ding. Mission evaluation complete. The host successfully hit the crazy milestone of being cursed by 10,000 people right before the memory extraction began. Reward $1 trillion transferring in 3, 2, 1. Arthur almost cries tears of pure joy. He looks up at the VIP box. Chloe is standing up there, just smiling through her tears. She had Always known the truth, Arthur gives her a gentle nod, then turns back to his groveling biological. Family forgive you, he smirks into the microphone. Way too late, I am clocking out. Before anyone can comprehend his words, Arthur's eyes flutter shut, his body goes. He went totally limp against those heavy belts. Arthur died right there on the platform, leaving Elena, the Sterling family, and the whole world to drown in an eternity of crushing regret. Beep, beep. Arthur snapped his eyes open, gasping loudly. The sterile smell of hospital sheets hit him hard. Arthur, you fell asleep. My boy, a frail voice rasped out. Arthur bolted upright, his real-world grandpa. Alive, looking right at him from the hospital bed. Then, his phone vibrated. Bank deposit, 1 million. Current balance, 1,145. He stared at the screen, a massive grin spread across his face. He grabbed his grandpa's frail hand. Pack your things, Grandpa. Arthur laughed, tears welling in his eyes. We're moving to the absolute best hospital on Earth. Through that window, the bright morning sun felt warmer than it had in 10 long years. Let the Sterling family and that entire other world drown in their endless regrets across dimensions. Our guy had played his part, claimed his massive prize, and left their script forever. Their tragedy was finally truly over.